Hi, I just want to come on. I've had a lot of requests maybe to tell my backstory or how I came about to be Heather Hill Farm, and I suppose it's a long story, it's a long windy road, but I grew up on a conventional small scale sheep farm here in southwest Donegal, mainly hill farming, and I loved farming as a kid, loved the outdoors, was always an early riser. But as I came into my teens, I started to figure out what I wanted to do in life, or thought what I wanted to do in life, and just the economics of farming just didn't make any sense to me, or I hadn't seen a way that you could make a living from farming. And most young people, most at that time in my life when I looked around, most people that farmed worked full-time jobs off the farm, and farming was just like a pastime or a bit of a hobby or a bit of an extra bit of income on the side. So I couldn't really find anyone that was making a proper living at it, so I kind of thought I just wrote it off as uneconomical, and I moved on and I went and studied woodwork teaching. I went to GMIT Letterfrack, and I spent 4 years in college and really enjoyed it and learned a lot about education and the value of education. And unfortunately, when I came out of college, it was 2011. Things in Ireland weren't great at the time. We were trying to rebuild from an economic crash, and I thought it was a good time to maybe go abroad and do some travelling. So I headed off to Australia, where I travelled for 2 years, and I had a great time in Australia. I worked in events, worked for a company that done temporary infrastructure, so we built grandstands, concert stages, done a lot of travelling. It was a really cool job, just met a lot of cool people and really had a good time. And then I came back home after 2 years travelling, and I went into the food industry. I was working in the bakery industry, and that's where I started to really get involved with food and what was going into food, and I was involved in engineering food, and I found it really interesting. And I also started to learn a lot about what was going into our food, and I started to learn a lot of really honest truths about what's going into food. And I took the realization that if I really want to take control and responsibility for my food, because this is the fuel that I put into my body, and I felt I needed to take control, then I need to start figuring out I needed to know where my food came from, because I didn't know where it was coming from. I was buying my food in the supermarket and it had all these labels, and I was trusting these labels, and really it's a label, I don't know the person who made it. So I thought, well, I either need to find the people that are producing the food or produce it myself. So I started on this road of figuring out, how am I going to produce all of my own food? And I said, whoa, this is a big task. And then I thought, well, if I can figure this out and I can produce all this food for myself, what if I could produce a little bit extra and sell that food to my neighbours and the community and make a living while doing it? And I thought, God, isn't that such a simple idea? And then that was the seed was planted for Heather Hill Farm. So I started to research, and I looked around the world to see, is there any real innovative farmers out there that were really pushing the boundaries. And I found them, and now they were innovative in a way, but really they were modelling how farming was done, 100 years ago, or the basis of their farming methods were in natural patterns. There was people like Joel Salatin and Richard Perkins. They've been doing this for years, and their systems, they were really mirrored on natural patterns, so how things are in nature, and they've adapted it to a farming setup, and it just was like a lightning bolt going off in my head. I thought, this makes total sense to me. So I've been working on this probably for the last 5 years, and I've done a lot of research and a lot of testing for what works here in my context, here in Donegal, in Ireland, what works and what doesn't work. So I spent the last probably 4 or 5 years testing and figuring it out, and it was only last year that I launched Heather Hill Farm. And now my dad gave me a 2-acre paddock to start the farm with, and that was in Ardra, on my home farm where I grew up. And I started small because I had figured out how all the systems would work, how the layers would interact with the broilers and the lambs and all, but I didn't know if there was going to be a market there, because there was nobody doing this here, and there's very few people doing this in Ireland, and I didn't know if there'd be a market. And I thought, well, Donegal is a long way from Dublin. Dublin is the it's the economical centre of Ireland, and we're a long way up here in Donegal. So I thought if I can do it here in Donegal, then this can be done anywhere in Ireland. And so I started off small. I started with 200 laying hens. I think we done maybe 200 broilers in our first year, a few lambs, a few pigs. But we started off small, and I had no need to be apprehensive. It just took off. People were crying out looking for quality produce. So done the first summer back at the home farm, and it just so happened that my family, my sisters, purchased this farm that we're on now. This is a 10-acre farm. This is the home of Heatherhill Farm now, and we moved here last September. So we've been here about 9-10 months, and we've done a lot of work. When we got here to the farm, there was basically nothing here. It was just 3 paddocks, and there was very little infrastructure. There was just water. There was no electricity. The fences were mediocre, but we had a lot of work to do. So when we got here in September, October, straight away we set about, we had to build a road into the farm, set up our infrastructure. We brought in shipping containers to work with. Now, starting up the farm, I've invested just my own money in this, so I had to keep the investment to a minimum. So we done most of the work ourselves. We put in the road ourselves. We just had to pay for materials. Our farm infrastructure is mobile, so we use shipping containers, polytunnels, everything that can be moved. So if I have to leave the farm tomorrow, I can still take pretty much everything with me. And then that was before Christmas. We've done all of that work on the infrastructure, got the power in. Well, the power actually didn't come in until after Christmas. My first 4 or 5 months on the farm, I didn't even have electricity here. Everything was by torch. So, that's the pains you have to go through to start up a small business with very little cash. But we got through it, and we're on the other side now. There's a greener pastures here. And then spring, we had a very wet spring, and it was a tough spring. I planted a lot of trees here in spring. They were tough, long days planting trees. Planted over 1,000 trees. We put in big windbreaks because we're right on the Atlantic coast here. So I want to put the wind up over the farm, so put in a lot of windbreaks. Then we planted loads of fruit trees, because this is the future. I'm planning for the future. So I wanted to get them in early so they can establish, and done a lot of work. And then I also built a second egg mobile, you can see behind me, to build chicken tractors, get polytunnels up. So it's been a busy spring for me, and I'm currently working on getting in garden beds to get veg for our family. And I'm quite lucky. I am the only one working full time on the farm, but I get a lot of help from my family. So my girlfriend Neve helps me a lot, particularly with customers, marketing. Then I'm so lucky to have my family living on the farm here. I don't live on the farm. I live about 5 miles up the road, but my nieces and nephews are on the farm, and it's great to have them around. It's a big part of it. So I've built the farm on 3 main principles. The first principle is I want to be ecologically regenerative or beneficial. So I want to leave the land better than how we found it. There's my nieces and nephews and children will be coming behind us, and I want to leave something better for them. I want to build topsoil. I want to create habitat, improve habitat. Then secondly, I want to be socially beneficial. So I want to produce quality, nutrient-dense food that's free of chemicals, that's free of crap, for the neighbours, for the wider community. People don't have access to quality food, so I want to give them that access. And then the third thing is I want to be economical. So I want to make a living doing this, because I see a lot of examples that are kind to the environment, that grow quality food, but they're just not economical. They can't make a living doing it. And I felt that was maybe one of the biggest challenges, but it was something that I have a background in starting up small businesses. I felt I was strong in that area, so I wanted to be strong and set up a really sustainable business. And that's the 3 legs in which holds up Heatherhill Farm. And thankfully this year things have been just going great. So we've extended our layer flock. We now got 600 layers on the farm. We're going to do 600 meat chickens this year. Expecting to get in maybe a dozen lambs. Our bee colonies are growing. I think we're up at 12 colonies now, and we've got in over 100 fruit trees here. So it's just all go at the farm. It's all abundance. and it's just a joyous place to be around. You know, I love coming here in the morning. You hear the birds singing, and it's a lovely place to be. So that's a little bit about how I came about, or a little bit of the journey so far. I know there's a long road ahead, but I'm really passionate about producing, quality food, about creating lovely environments for animals to thrive in, based on natural patterns. And it's been a great journey so far, and I'm so thankful for all the support. I can't do this without my customers. I produce a quality product for them, but they're paramount. This is their farm, really. This farm is greater than me or my family. It's becoming a community farm because we're producing food for the community, and it's hopefully in the years to come, it'll be a real key part of the community here, and I'm really excited about that, and can't wait to see where this journey takes me. So thanks guys for all your input, and hopefully I'll keep the videos coming. Bye for now.